Today we step into the deep, mysterious and transformative energy of Scorpio, or the 8th house. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, passionate and unafraid of the shadows. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs transformation, intimacy, shared resources, death and rebirth, and the hidden layers of life. When planets land here, their energy is expressed through depth, intensity, and the power of transformation. This part of the chart is about what lies beneath the surface, the secrets, the shadows, and the truths we can't ignore. It's where we merge with others through intimacy, shared power and resources, and where we learn the lessons of letting go and beginning again. Each planet in Scorpio, or the 8th house, takes on a transformative edge. The sun shines through intensity and rebirth. Mercury speaks with depth and honesty. Venus loves with passion and devotion, while Saturn here teaches karmic lessons around power and responsibility. When Scorpio, or the 8th house, appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to look deeper, to face what's hidden, to release what no longer serves you, and to embrace transformation. Because Scorpio and the 8th house remind us that endings are never just endings. They are the gateways to renewal, empowerment, and rebirth. Today we step into the intense, magnetic and transformative energy of the sun in Scorpio, or in the 8th house. The sun represents your core identity, purpose, and the light you shine into the world. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is passionate, mysterious, and fearless in the face of transformation. The 8th house carries these same themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, rebirth, and the hidden side of life. When the sun lands here, your purpose is to shine through depth, authenticity, and the courage to face change head-on. This placement creates someone with a powerful presence. You're naturally drawn to life's deeper truths, and you thrive when you peel back the layers to uncover what's real. At your best, you embody resilience, passion, and an ability to transform yourself and inspire others. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with secrecy, control, or holding on too tightly to what needs to be released. In relationships, you seek intensity and loyalty. Casual connections rarely satisfy you. You long for bonds that are transformative, intimate, and all-consuming. In career, this placement thrives in psychology, healing, research, finance, law, or any work involving investigation, transformation, or shared resources. You're here to uncover truths and bring light to hidden places. In health, vitality often ebbs and flows with your emotional state. Releasing suppressed emotions and embracing practices of renewal, whether physical or spiritual, are essential. Financially, shared resources, inheritances, or partnerships may play a key role. You may experience cycles of loss and renewal, but you have the power to rebuild stronger each time. When the sun in Scorpio, or the 8th house, appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a reminder that your strength lies in transformation. A chapter may be ending, but it's clearing the way for something more powerful to emerge. So ask yourself, am I clinging to what's fading, or am I ready to embrace rebirth? Because the sun in Scorpio, or the 8th house, teaches that true power doesn't come from control. It comes from the courage to let go and rise again. Today we step into the probing, intuitive, and transformative energy of Mercury in Scorpio, or in the 8th house. Mercury represents thought, communication, and how we process and share information. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, mysterious, and deeply insightful. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs transformation, intimacy, shared resources, and hidden truths. When Mercury lands here, the mind becomes sharp, investigative, and drawn to the depths beneath the surface. This placement creates someone with powerful perception. You're not satisfied with small talk. You want to know the truth, the hidden motives, and what lies behind people's words. At your best, you're insightful, intuitive, and able to speak with depth and honesty. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with secrecy, suspicion, or using words to control rather than connect. In relationships, you crave deep communication. Superficial exchanges leave you restless. You want soul-bearing conversations and truth that transforms. In career, Mercury here thrives in research, psychology, investigation, finance, writing, or any field where uncovering hidden knowledge or transforming systems is central. You excel at problem solving and seeing patterns others overlook. In health, the mind-body connection is strong. Unspoken thoughts or buried emotions can weigh heavily, so journaling, therapy, or energy work can be powerful outlets. Financially, this placement often brings focus on shared resources, inheritances, or joint ventures. Clear communication in these areas is essential. When Mercury in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to look deeper. A truth may be hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered through intuition or dialogue. So ask yourself, am I speaking and thinking from fear or from a place of truth and transformation? Because Mercury in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that words have power, and when used with honesty and insight, they can heal, transform, and reveal what's real. Today we step into the passionate, magnetic, and transformative energy of Venus in Scorpio or in the 8th house. Venus represents love, beauty, pleasure, and what we value. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, loyal, and unafraid of emotional depth. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Venus lands here, love and desire become all-encompassing, powerful, and transformative experiences. This placement creates someone who craves depth in relationships. You don't settle for surface-level attraction. You want love that transforms, bonds that feel fated, and intimacy that reshapes your soul. At your best, you bring devotion, passion, and a healing presence into relationships. At your most unbalanced, you may wrestle with jealousy, possessiveness, or fear of loss. In relationships, you're magnetic, loyal, and deeply emotional. You long for partnerships that are both sensual and soulful, where trust and vulnerability create unbreakable bonds. In career, Venus here thrives in psychology, finance, art, healing, or any field that involves transformation, intimacy, or the sharing of resources. You may have a natural talent for influencing others through charm and depth. In health, emotional intensity can affect your physical well-being. Practices of release, whether through creativity, therapy, or spiritual renewal, are key to balance. Financially, shared resources, inheritances, or joint ventures may play a significant role. You may benefit from partnerships, but must ensure financial dealings remain transparent and fair. When Venus in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to open your heart to transformation. A relationship or financial matter may hold the key to profound change. So ask yourself, am I clinging to control in love and money, or am I allowing trust and transformation to unfold? Because Venus in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that true beauty and love are not found in what's superficial. They are discovered in the depths, where passion and transformation meet. Today we step into the intense, intuitive, and deeply transformative energy of the moon in Scorpio or in the 8th house. The moon represents your emotions, instincts, and inner needs. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is passionate, private, and unafraid of shadow work. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, endings and rebirth, and the mysteries of life. When the moon lands here, emotions run profound, magnetic, and often life-changing. This placement creates someone who feels everything deeply. You're intuitive, emotionally perceptive, and often drawn to life's hidden truths. At your best, you're resilient, empathetic, and capable of healing both yourself and others through emotional honesty. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with jealousy, secrecy, or fears of abandonment that run beneath the surface. In relationships, you crave depth and loyalty. Casual connections rarely satisfy. You long for intimacy that transforms you, bonds built on trust, and partners who aren't afraid of emotional intensity. In career, this placement shines in psychology, healing, research, occult studies, or finance. Any work that involves transformation, shared resources, or diving beneath the surface. You're naturally skilled at understanding what others keep hidden. In health, emotions are tied to physical well-being. Stress or suppression of feelings may weigh on the body, but healing practices, therapy, meditation, or deep emotional release can restore balance. Financially, shared resources, inheritances, or partnerships may play a key role. Emotional security is often linked to how safe you feel in joint financial arrangements. When the moon in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to honour your emotional intensity. A transformation in love, intimacy, or emotional patterns may be unfolding now. So ask yourself, am I embracing the depth of my feelings or hiding them out of fear of vulnerability? Because the moon in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that emotional power lies not in suppression, but in the courage to feel, transform, and rise stronger from the depths. Today we step into the profound, transformative, and soul-deep path of the North Node in Scorpio or in the 8th house. The North Node represents your soul's direction in this lifetime, the qualities you're here to grow into, even if they feel uncomfortable at first. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, intuitive, and unafraid of endings and rebirth. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and hidden truths. When the North Node lands here, your purpose is to embrace depth, face change, and find empowerment through transformation and trust. This path calls you away from the South Node in Taurus, or the 2nd house, where comfort, security, and material stability may feel natural. In past lives or earlier in this one, you may have clung to the familiar, relying on possessions or routines to feel safe. Now you're asked to let go of attachment, step into vulnerability, and find strength in the unseen and the unknown. In relationships, you're learning to open yourself to true intimacy, where trust, merging, and shared transformation bring growth beyond what comfort zones allow. In career, this placement thrives in psychology, healing, occult studies, finance, research, or any field involving transformation and shared power. Success often comes when you embrace change rather than resist it. In health, deep healing is essential. Emotional or spiritual renewal often mirrors physical well-being, reminding you that healing comes from within. Financially, lessons often centre around shared resources, inheritances, or joint ventures. Learning to let go of control and trust in flow opens the door to abundance. When the North Node in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to lean into transformation. Something in your life may need to be released so you can rise stronger and more empowered. So ask yourself, am I holding on to comfort out of fear of change? Or am I ready to trust the process of transformation? Because the North Node in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that your greatest growth lies in surrender, vulnerability, and the courage to be reborn. Today we step into the karmic familiarity of the South Node in Scorpio or in the 8th house. The South Node represents past life tendencies or early life patterns that feel second nature but can hold you back if you rely on them too much. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, secretive, and transformative. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, endings and rebirth, and life's hidden depths. When the South Node lands here, the soul is already skilled at navigating intensity, crises, and transformation. This placement suggests you've spent lifetimes, or much of this one, immersed in the deep and hidden aspects of life. You know how to survive, to regenerate, and to handle powerful emotional or financial entanglements. At your best, you're resourceful, intuitive, and unafraid of change. At your most unbalanced, you may lean toward drama, secrecy, or being overly entangled in power struggles. In relationships, you may carry a tendency toward dependency, jealousy, or over-merging with others. Your growth lies in moving toward the North Node in Taurus, or the 2nd house, finding stability, grounding, and self-reliance. In career, you may already excel in psychology, healing, finance, research, or crisis management. But your evolution calls you to also embrace simplicity, consistency, and building lasting security rather than constantly reinventing. In health, emotional intensity can weigh on the body if left unprocessed. Balance comes from grounding practices, nature, and routines that bring peace. Financially, this placement often ties to shared resources, inheritances, or joint ventures. But your soul's growth lies in creating your own stability, rather than relying too much on what others provide. When the South Node in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading. It's a reminder to release old patterns of drama, secrecy, or overdependence. You've already mastered intensity. Now it's time to seek stability and simplicity. So ask yourself, am I clinging to the past through crisis and control, or am I ready to build calm, steady security for myself? Because the South Node in Scorpio, or the 8th house, teaches that real power doesn't come from surviving the storm. It comes from learning to live in peace after it has passed. Today we step into the fierce, determined, and transformative energy of Mars in Scorpio, or in the 8th house. Mars represents drive, passion, and how we take action. Scorpio, traditionally ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, focused, and unafraid of depth. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Mars lands here, ambition is fueled by intensity, willpower, and the courage to face the unknown. This placement creates someone with incredible stamina and focus. You don't act lightly. When you commit fully. At your best, you're courageous, strategic, and resilient, with the power to overcome obstacles that stop others in their tracks. At your most unbalanced, you may wrestle with jealousy, control, or destructive anger if passions aren't channeled constructively. In relationships, you're magnetic, loyal, and passionate. Intimacy feels all or nothing, and you crave bonds that are both emotional and physical, rooted in trust and honesty. In career, Mars here excels in psychology, law, research, healing, crisis management, or finance. Any role that requires courage, focus, and to transform challenges into strength. In health, you're resilient, but intensity can build up if emotions aren't processed. Physical outlets, deep healing work, or practices that release tension help restore balance. Financially, joint resources, inheritances, or business partnerships may play a role. You have the drive to transform financial circumstances, though caution is needed with power dynamics. When Mars in Scorpio, or the 8th house, appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a message to take decisive, focused action. A transformation is underway, and your courage and resilience will carry you through. So ask yourself, am I using my passion to empower and transform, or to control and hold on too tightly? Because Mars in Scorpio, or the 8th house, teaches that true strength comes from channeled intensity, turning raw passion into the power to rebuild, heal, and rise stronger than before. Today, we step into the expansive, magnetic, and transformative energy of Jupiter in Scorpio, or in the 8th house. Jupiter represents growth, wisdom, and abundance. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, passionate, and unafraid of the shadows. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Jupiter lands here, growth comes through depth, healing, and embracing the mysteries of life. This placement creates someone who thrives when diving beneath the surface. You're gifted with insight, resilience, and the ability to expand through transformation. At your best, you're wise, intuitive, and able to help others grow through crisis and change. At your most unbalanced, you may overindulge in drama, secrecy, or power struggles. In relationships, you're passionate, loyal, and drawn to bonds that feel fated. Love becomes a source of growth, and intimacy can open doors to healing and empowerment. In career, Jupiter here thrives in psychology, research, healing, occult studies, law, or finance. You're gifted at uncovering hidden truths and turning challenges into opportunities for wisdom and abundance. In health, healing often comes through transformation, letting go of what no longer serves your body or spirit. Practices that combine spirituality and renewal can be especially powerful. Financially, this placement often brings blessings through shared resources, inheritances, or business partnerships. You may also have a talent for growing wealth through investments or joint ventures. When Jupiter in Scorpio, or the 8th house, appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign that growth is unfolding through transformation. A deep change may bring blessings, even if it first feels uncomfortable. So ask yourself, am I trusting the process of transformation, or am I resisting the very changes that could expand my life? Because Jupiter in Scorpio, or the 8th house, teaches that abundance comes not from avoiding the shadows, but from embracing them and finding wisdom and renewal in the depths. Today we step into the disciplined, intense, and deeply transformative energy of Saturn in Scorpio or in the 8th house. Saturn represents structure, responsibility, and long-term lessons. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is passionate, fearless, and unafraid of shadow work. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Saturn lands here, life lessons revolve around trust, vulnerability, and learning to face transformation with strength and maturity. This placement creates someone who takes relationships, resources, and personal growth seriously. You may face challenges around intimacy, control, or shared finances that force you to confront fears and build resilience. At your best, you gain profound wisdom and stability by mastering what others may shy away from. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with fear of loss, secrecy, or resistance to change. In relationships, you value loyalty and depth. Partnerships may feel karmic, bringing lessons around trust, vulnerability, and shared responsibility. With time, you build bonds that are unshakable. In career, Saturn here thrives in psychology, research, law, finance, crisis management, or healing work. Success comes slowly but surely through persistence and the willingness to take responsibility for transformation. In health, emotional intensity may affect your body if suppressed. Healing comes through patience, acceptance, and practices that support renewal, such as therapy, meditation, or shadow work. Financially, shared money, debts, or inheritances may be areas of responsibility. You're learning discipline in joint ventures, and with effort, you can build lasting stability from what once felt like challenge. When Saturn in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a reminder that transformation takes time and courage. You're being asked to face fears, release control, and build trust in the process. So ask yourself, am I resisting the lessons of transformation? Or am I willing to commit to the growth they bring? Because Saturn in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that true strength isn't about avoiding change. It's about embracing it with discipline, patience, and the courage to rebuild. Today we step into the revolutionary, unpredictable, and deeply transformative energy of Uranus in Scorpio or in the 8th house. Uranus represents change, freedom, and awakening. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, fearless, and drawn to life's hidden depths. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Uranus lands here, transformation often comes suddenly, bringing unexpected breakthroughs in love, money, and personal power. This placement creates someone who experiences change in profound ways. You're drawn to explore taboo subjects, unconventional intimacy, or alternative paths of healing and spirituality. At your best, you're innovative, courageous, and able to transform yourself and others with radical insight. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with instability, sudden crises, or restlessness in relationships and finances. In relationships, you crave depth, but also freedom. Partnerships may be unconventional, magnetic, or subject to sudden shifts that push you to grow. In career, Uranus here shines in psychology, occult studies, technology, finance, or healing. You're gifted at creating breakthroughs in areas where others fear to tread, often revolutionizing how power and resources are managed. In health, Uranus can bring sudden ups and downs, often tied to emotional intensity. Alternative healing and energy work may resonate strongly with you. Financially, shared resources, investments, or inheritances may fluctuate unexpectedly. Sudden gains or losses are possible, teaching you flexibility and resilience. When Uranus in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign that sudden change or awakening is unfolding in the realms of intimacy, money, or transformation. What feels unstable now may be guiding you toward freedom and renewal. So ask yourself, am I resisting change out of fear? Or am I open to the breakthroughs it can bring? Because Uranus in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that transformation doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it comes like lightning, clearing the way for profound rebirth. Today we step into the mystical, intuitive, and deeply transformative energy of Neptune in Scorpio or in the 8th house. Neptune represents dreams, spirituality, and illusion. Scorpio, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is intense, passionate, and unafraid of life's mysteries. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, transformation, and rebirth. When Neptune lands here, the hidden realms of life become infused with spiritual depth, psychic sensitivity, and a longing for transcendence through transformation. This placement creates someone who feels drawn to the unseen and the mystical. You may have natural psychic abilities, a gift for sensing energies, or a fascination with life's mysteries. At your best, you bring compassion, intuition, and healing to others through your depth. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with illusion, secrecy, or confusion in intimacy and finances. In relationships, you long for soul-level connection. Love may feel spiritual, transformative, or even karmic, but you must be mindful of projection, or seeing only what you wish to see in a partner. In career, Neptune here thrives in healing, psychology, spirituality, art, or research. You're gifted at blending intuition with transformation, often inspiring others through depth and compassion. In health, sensitivity is heightened. Emotional or energetic imbalance can manifest physically, so grounding practices and healthy boundaries are essential. Financially, Neptune in the 8th can bring confusion around shared money, inheritances, or debts. Clarity, transparency, and practicality are important in joint ventures. When Neptune in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a reminder to trust your intuition while staying grounded. Transformation may feel mysterious or unclear, but it's guiding you towards spiritual growth. So ask yourself, am I seeing the truth of a situation, or am I lost in fantasy or fear? Because Neptune in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that real transformation is both mystical and practical, a merging of spiritual vision with grounded truth. Today we step into the most powerful, intense, and transformative energy of Pluto in Scorpio or in the 8th house. Pluto represents transformation, power, and rebirth. Scorpio, its own sign, is magnetic, fearless, and deeply tied to cycles of death and renewal. The 8th house mirrors these themes. It governs intimacy, shared resources, endings, and the mysteries of life. When Pluto lands here, its influence is amplified, making this one of the most potent placements in the zodiac. This placement creates someone with extraordinary depth and resilience. You're drawn to life's mysteries, unafraid to confront shadows, and capable of profound self-transformation. At your best, you become a healer, a guide, or a catalyst for change, empowering both yourself and others. At your most unbalanced, you may struggle with control, obsession, or destructive patterns that must be released to grow. In relationships, you crave intensity and truth. Superficial connections rarely satisfy. You long for intimacy that transforms you at the soul level, though power struggles or jealousy may sometimes test your bonds. In career, Pluto here thrives in psychology, healing, research, law, occult studies, or finance. Any work involving transformation, investigation, or shared resources. You're capable of profound influence in your chosen field. In health, crises may act as turning points, forcing you to release what no longer serves you. Regeneration and healing are key themes throughout life. Financially, shared resources, inheritances, or joint ventures may play a powerful role. There can be dramatic shifts, loss followed by renewal, but with wisdom, you learn to rebuild stronger than before. When Pluto in Scorpio or the 8th house appears in an astrology dice roll during a psychic reading, it's a sign of profound transformation. Something is ending so that something new and more powerful can be born. So ask yourself, am I holding on to control out of fear? Or am I allowing transformation to guide me to empowerment? Because Pluto in Scorpio or the 8th house teaches that true power comes not from clinging to the old, but from embracing rebirth, rising again, stronger and wiser from the depths.